Hello everyone, in this video we will learn how to plot points on the coordinate plane. The coordinate plane is simply a space that you see with grids. This plane we call coordinate or Cartesian plane. And as you see, we have two axes on that plane. We have the y-axis and the x-axis. It is always a good habit to label our axes as we plot points or graph lines on the plane. So let's label the axis, the vertical one. The vertical is the y, and the horizontal is the x-axis. As you see, the two axes, they intersect at one point that we call the origin. So the origin is the only point where the two axes intersect. To plot points, we basically locate the point on the coordinate plane and give it an order pair. The order pair will determine the x and the y coordinates of that point. As you see on the plane, we divide the plane to 4 quadrants, and a quadrant is basically a quarter. So the way we label the quarters or the quadrants are to give them Roman numbers. So quadrant 1, quadrant 2, and then quadrant 3, and the last one is quadrant 4. To plot points on the coordinate plane, we need to know the x and the y coordinate of that point. So as you see here, this is an order pair for the point A. Always the first number is the x coordinate and the second number would be the y coordinate. The way that we plot the point on the coordinate plane is to start from the origin. So since the first number is -3 and that is for the x coordinate, we need to find -3 on the x-axis. Remember, this is the x, the horizontal axis, and this is the y, the vertical axis. So start at the origin, and then since it's a negative value, you're always going to find that value on the left of the x-axis, and this is the -3. This is not our point yet because we have to go then either up or down depending on the y coordinate that we have. Since the y coordinate is a negative value, then we will find the -2 on the bottom part of the y-axis. So far, we are at the -3 on the x-axis, and then we have to go down to the -2. So that will label the point A, and then we can give the order pair again just to signify this point as -3 and -2. For point B, the same story. Now, the first number is x and y. We need to be careful where to locate the x and the y coordinates. -6 would be on the left-hand side of the x coordinate. So this is -6, and then we have to go either up or down depending again on the value of the y coordinate. This time, the y coordinate is a 5. It's a positive value. So from -6, we have to go 5 units up to meet the 5 on the y coordinate. Since this is a 4 and this is a 6, then the midpoint would be the 5. Even if the axis is not labeled, you are able to figure this out. So this is point B, and that is a -6 and 5. For point C, it's a 2 and 1, so that is x and y. So 2 is a positive. It will be found on the right-hand side of the x-axis. And then we have to go up 1 unit, and this would be C, 2 and 1. Point D is 0 and 8. So 0, it means that the x value is 0 and the y value is 8. Remember, the origin is where the two axes intersect. This point, the origin always have the order pair 0 and 0, meaning that the x is at 0 and the y is at 0. The x is 0 means that we're going to start at the origin. We're not going to go nowhere right or left because the x is 0. And then we're going to go up 8 units to label point D. So D does not fall on either of the quadrants. It falls right on the y-axis. D is 0 and 8. The next point is E. So again, I like always to label the coordinates, especially if we're still learning how to plot points on the plane. So 4 is for the x, so 4 is positive. It will be on the right-hand side of the x-axis, and then a -4 for the y. So here would be the point. Let me change the color. So let's make it red here. So that is a 4 and -4. This is the point E. 4 and -4. Last point, 6 and 0. So this time the x is a number other than a 0, but y is a 0. So x is 6, that would be the right-hand side of the x-axis. And then since it's a 0 for the y, we're not going to go up or down. It's going to be right on the x-axis. So that is point F, and that's a 6 and 0. Now, for each of these points, let's determine which one falls on quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. So again, let's label the quadrants. So that is quadrant 1, that is quadrant 2, that is 3, and finally, this is 4. Now, if we look at this quadrant, then we are able to say which point falls in which quadrant. So for example, let's start with A. Point A falls on or within quadrant 3. So we can label this as quadrant 3. Point B from the plane, we see it is right on quadrant 4. Point C, it is on quadrant 1. D is right on the y-axis, so none of the quadrants have point D, so that is the y-axis. Point E is on quadrant 2, and then finally point F is on the x-axis, so x-axis. Now let's do the other way around. Write the order pair of each of the plotted points. So this time, instead of us plotting the points on the plane, the points are already plotted in the plane. Our job is to define the order pair of each of those plotted points. So let's do that together. We're basically going to work backwards. For point A then, we need to determine the x and the y coordinates. So let's do that. To do this, we need to see where the point A meets with the x-axis. So since there is a -6, there is a -8, the in the between would be a -7. So the x-coordinate of the point A, so far we know, is a -7. The y-coordinate, the same story. I need to look where the point A meets with the y-axis. This is y, and that is x. So from the plane or the graph, we see it's an 8 for the y-coordinate. B is right on the y-axis. So that makes x value is 0, because remember, this is the origin with an x equals to 0. So 0 for x, and the y coordinate of that B point would be right on the 5 on the y-axis. Point C, same thing. Draw a dashed line down to meet the x-axis, and that will label the 5. So for point C, x coordinate is 5. For the y coordinate, it is going to be 3. The D is the origin, so it is right away 0 for x and 0 for y. Point E, draw a dashed line up to meet the x-axis. So that is a 6, and then there is an 8, then this will be a 7. So the x-coordinate for E is 7. The y-coordinate for E is a -4. For point F, same thing, meet the x-axis, and that would be a -3 for the x-coordinate. For the y-coordinate, it is going to be -6. So -3 and -6 for point F. The last point G is right on the x-axis. So the x-axis has a value of -6, but we did not go up or down, so the y would be the 0. Next, this question is for you to do. These questions are given within this video, so you are able to pause the video after we read the question together, take your time to do the problem, and then you're able to play the video again to look at the answers. So for now, please pause the video after we do read the question. Plot the following points on the Cartesian or the coordinate plane. So you are given some bunch of points, A through E. You need to label them on the plane. Let's do that together. So for point A, x is a -5. So a -5 would be on here. And then we have to go up 5 points. So that would label the -5 and 5. That is point A, -5 and 5. For point B, we have a 9 and -1. 9 will be on the right-hand side of the x-axis. So 9 and -1. So that will label B 9 and -1. For point C, it's a 0. So I have to start on the origin, and then I'll go up 6 points since y is a +6. And that would be right on the y-axis, 0 and 6. D is 4 and 0. So 4, and we're not going to go up or down, so it's going to be right on the x-axis. That is D, 4, and 0. Last point, E, is going to be -8 and then -4. So that is E, -8, and -4. This is another question that you should pause the video for, do, and then come back for the answers. Write the order pair of each of the following points. So it is the other way around. We have the points plotted on the Cartesian plane or the coordinate plane. You have your axis, y and x. You need to write out the order pair of each of those points. Let's do the problems together. So point A, we need to figure out the x coordinate first. Remember, the first number in the order pair will be the x coordinate. For this one, it's a -8. And then for the y coordinate, it will be a 5. Next point is B, and B we see it's right on the y-axis. So it's the origin for the x is 0, and then go up 4 units. So that will give you 0 and 4 for the coordinates of point B. For C, meet the x-axis at 9, so that will give you the 9, and then you have to go horizontally to meet the y-axis at 4. For D, it's right on the x-axis, so we know there is a value for x but none for the y, so it is a -1, and 0. And then point E, finally, would be 1 and -6. If you have any questions on this video, you're able to email your questions, chat if you have a brief question on this video, or schedule an appointment using the link below.